Now that we have our august member here, we can go ahead and begin. Welcome
Apologies.
to the May 9th, gosh, it's hard to believe it's mid-May, May 9th meeting of the Town Council for the Town of Washington. We have an agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? You a second?
Second.
You, Jean. Are there any amendments or deletions? Otherwise, a roll call vote to approve the agenda. Jean?
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. We have two sets of minutes, one from the April 11th regular meeting and one from the April 16th work session. Unless there is an objection, we will go ahead. I'd welcome a motion to accept both sets of minutes.
So move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Jean. Are there any questions or changes? Hearing none, roll call vote to approve the minutes of April 11 and April 16, 2002. Jean?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Mayor's report. I have a few things. The first and foremost is to congratulate the Inn on retaining their 3 stars on the Michelin Guide. I had a chance to go to the website and saw that I don't know if any of your brethren in Washington, did
No.
they? They didn't.
No one
So
has received it.
so it's basically New York, Chicago, and the West Coast.
Yes, we're the only ones south of New York.
Right. So congratulations on that. Plus, congratulations on the recognition, the mobile guide, or the Michelin Guide for patios, which is a singular achievement, I understand. So
Yes, in the first year. Yes.
we are
Less than a year.
we are proud to be associated with you.
Thank you. We are likewise proud to be here.
So thank you. Second, we have the brochure for a walking tour of the town. It has been going along thanks to Chair Dean. So would you like to speak a couple about your progress?
Sure. We've almost completed the text for the brochure, and we're meeting again on Thursday to sort of finalize things, and I hope the next step will be sending it to the printer. The goal is to provide, in the past there's been a brochure about the retail shops, and then also a different brochure about the history of buildings. And what we're trying to do is meld the two, so we have both the retail and the historical aspect. I think originally, at least for me, the thought was that this would be for visitors of the town who could walk around and understand what they're seeing. But I discover, actually for me, and I've lived here for 25 years, I've learned a lot about the history of the buildings. And so I think it'll be of interest to residents as well as visitors. It's been a good group to work with, and I want to give a special tip of the hat to Nancy Button, who has been, her participation has been extraordinary, and so I wanted to say thank you especially to her. But we're moving along, and I would hope before too long we're going to have this available, and it'll be at the visitor center and at B&Bs, and so people can pick it up whenever they want.
I will second the kudos to Nancy Bunton. She is a walking encyclopedia of the town of Washington. And just spending some time with her in these meetings, I've learned, like you have, a lot about the history of buildings and lots of good, juicy stories about the people who are in them. So a couple of other points I wanted to bring up to follow up on your comments. The first is that in addition to the printed brochure, we're looking at doing an on-site or online version that will be much more detailed and give much more of the history and some of the stories that pertain to each building, so that as people walk around town, they can refer to their smartphone and pick up a lot of the information there. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is in your water bill, you'll find some information about this project, and I hope everyone will want to be included. We're going to be very sure to note in bold that ask people who are using the brochure not to disturb private residences in any way. But if someone wants to have the opportunity to opt out of being included, or their residence being included in the brochure, they're more than welcome to do so by contacting Barbara in the town clerk administrator's office. Thank you for your report on that. A couple of other things. The County Board of Supervisors met last week and discussed the footpath going across their property, which is behind the county office buildings. I want to say publicly that to the members of the Board of Supervisors, I shared this with Gary Curry, the administrator today, the town appreciates the county's involvement in this. I think it will benefit everybody. This footpath or trail that will go from the stub of Jet Street down to the new post office. I want to thank Drew Mitchell for allowing this path to go along the edge of your property. That's been an enormous part, and we are working on getting the legal language to make it accommodating for you. The county had some concerns, and Mr. Krim is working with Mr. Goff to resolve those concerns. And we hope that we'll be able to get onto this thing in the, certainly, probably by the fall at the latest, so that we can get it constructed before the end of the calendar year. For those of you who did not attend the County Board of Supervisors meeting, they had a report from their building committee about the courthouse. They're looking at whether they were going to add an addition to the courthouse or build a new courthouse. And I think they did not make any decisions, but I think it is the preference of the building committee to look at the new construction, which would be in the area, again, at the end of the Jet Street stub, kind of where they had the annual bonfire down that hill, roughly in that area, from what I gather, would be both the new courthouse and some administrative buildings. And then they would also renovate the current courthouse and have it available for other purposes. So the county is doing a very ambitious plan to renovate a lot of their beautiful old historical buildings. And I commend them for taking on that. It's not cheap. And all of us in the town and in the county are grateful that they are. Those are all my comments. Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at my report, nothing unusual to report. Just a reminder, when you look at under the wastewater treatment plant line 16 operating expenses, that includes the loan. So that includes close to $200,000 because that's both the past November and the one that we paid last month. So that jumps out at how come we had $116,000 in operating expenses last month? It's because we paid the mortgage. That's it on the report. And on the bills to be paid, nothing unusual there. Barbara, anything you need to point out for anybody? I didn't see anything unusual. Okay. So if I
Questions for the treasurer? If not, a roll call vote to approve the bills to be paid. Gene?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Krim?
Thank you, Mayor. You stole most of my thunder.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was going to report on the path to the post office, but I don't have anything to add to what you just said. The boundary line adjustment, I did have a good conversation with Mr. Foote, who represents Mr. Acre, and Mr. Goff, the county attorney, separately. We weren't able to get together all at the same time and have a discussion, but I think we understand the scope of what the county wants to have and what the applicant is willing to do. And so we're an interested bystander at this point. It's really between the two of them to figure out what they want to do and then how to do it. And so it was a productive discussion, and I look forward to continuing that discussion. The only other thing I had to report on is an action item on your agenda, which is the bulk water sales ordinance. That's new business A, non-meter water rate. So that has to be advertised for a public hearing. So the action that I'm requesting from you tonight is that you authorize that for a public hearing to be advertised for the June council meeting.
All right. Mr. Guyerson was given a get-out-jail-free card and not required to attend tonight. He didn't have anything significant that he wanted to share with you. His report is in here. Does he want that read? Okay. But it is in the public documents. All right. Are there any questions from town council members?
Pretty much looked over it. I didn't have any questions.
All right. Public Works Committee.
Not a lot significant to report this. We're evaluating some new potential valves that might allow us to further automate the system, but more to follow on that. We're just back and forth with the company right now.
Planning Commission.
At our last meeting,
This is Judy DeSarno, who's
Yes.
a member of the Planning Commission.
right,
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair of the Planning
and a
Commission.
resident of the town. The swimming pool recommendations came back to us again because evidently people wanted a better description of what ground level meant. So Mr. Geisen was working on what ground level. We were trying to say you can't have above ground pools. It basically also says it can't be seen from the street, and no chlorinated water is, I think with those two definitions, it's ready to come back to you all to take a look at it. And you may have already seen it because Mr. Geisen, like 2 months ago, circulated it to people who seem to have concerns. We also took a look at and have begun, well, I hope we finished actually, conversations about solar. Solar panels are, you may not ban solar powers by Virginia state law. So there was a lot of discussion at the previous board meeting, which I chaired, that we didn't really need an ordinance. That the state law says you can have rules, particularly, and they list in particular historic districts, which we simply thought meant go, to the ARP. Our chair, when she came back, did not think that was adequate and because she thinks this will generate a lot of conversation in the town, that we needed to have a simple ordinance saying that solar panels, we still are trying to figure out something about ground panels because we're hoping we could put in solar out by the sewer treatment plant and so you can't say no ground. We were hoping, we didn't really want them in the yards if they could be seen. It's tricky. A member of the Architectural Review Board attended our meeting and very helpful because they don't have anything in writing yet, although they're revising the regulations, and we'll add this to their work, of what those regulations could be. We did not take a stand on that they could not be on the front of the houses. The problem is how they have to be seated in order to face the sun or get the most sun for solar panels. And some houses, it would have to be on the front or on the side. And so I'm not certain how they will resolve that. The committee is divided on whether it could be seen from the street. To my surprise, because that's not where we were before. But that's where we are on that. It's really something we'll get written up with Mr. Geisen to come to you all, and there'll have to be hearings on the whole bit. But that's sort of where we are. A lot of research was done on it, particularly with respect to historic districts. Then finally, with respect to the comprehensive plan, we have sort of been treading water while we wait for what's going to happen with the boundary adjustment, because it affects just perhaps some of the language we may or may not put in the comprehensive plan. We do think we're going to need some technical assistance, and we will be proposing, bring a proposal for how many hours and what that might cost, probably up to about $15,000. There were parts when we had the forum, and we've had conversations with a lot of you and with other people on the street about what we want in the town in terms of that would be advantageous to businesses coming to the town and also to our visitors. Some of those would require much more technology or access to technology. So we're waiting to see what happens, but we know we are beginning to do all of the easy stuff of getting rid of duplicative language that's in the present and getting up to date on all of the demographic information that's in there. But we will be back. We're submitting to you all our proposal for a consultant. And that's it. If anybody has any questions.
I have
Yeah.
two, not questions, but comments. First of which is I thank the Planning Commission for all their work on the pools and on the solar panels. Finding out about that state ordinance was something that was important. I'm glad that you discovered that. And then the second comment is the requirement of the Commonwealth of Virginia is that you do a review of the comprehensive plan every 5 years, which you have obviously done. So you have met the minimum requirement.
We have.
My suggestion, and it is purely a suggestion from me as one member of the town council, is that you bring up a good point. I think that once Rush River is done, and if the boundary line adjustment occurs, it will make some fundamental shifts in how we look at things in the town. And it may be that you have a deadline, I think, of September for submitting the review. And what you may want to do, I don't think there's anything that prevents you from coming back to the comprehensive plan once the boundary line adjustment issue is resolved, to go ahead and delve into that at that time. So it's just merely a suggestion.
Are you saying, in other words, simply, we have to do something by September. We can just extend for another year our current plan, sort of punt,
Well,
and then come back, if that's what you're sort of suggesting. I don't want to do a whole lot of work that might have to be redone.
right.
I'm with you on what you're saying.
Right. I'm not sure I'd use the term punt.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that you could fulfill the requirements of the state by submitting to the town council that you have done a review of the comprehensive plan. There is nothing that I remember seeing in the ordinance, and Mr. Krim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that says that the Planning Commission cannot come back a year from now or 2 years from now if they wish to and do a review of the comprehensive plan.
Nothing to stop that at all. In fact, you can process a comprehensive plan at any time, either just due to, systematic review over the 5-year period, so you don't leave it all to the end, or through changing the circumstances where you need to bring an amendment forward.
At a meeting about 3 months ago, maybe at the beginning, it was after we've done everything on Rush River 1. We did the formal, we have reviewed the plan and found that it needs work. But by simply saying we have reviewed the plan, does that take care of having to do anything by September?
No, I think what you can do, in fact, I don't remember that specifically being said or recorded in the minutes. If you want to repeat that, was it in the minutes?
Oh, it wasn't?
So,
Okay, I thought
So-
Mr. Geisen and Caroline did. Okay,
so
we will
if
make
you-
certain that that happens.
If you write a
Okay.
1 or 2 sentence letter to Barbara and just basically say, we have done a review. And then once the circumstances that you're suggesting, and I think there are good reasons to delay the work on the comprehensive plan until these issues are resolved, then you can go ahead and
Well,
go on with it.
I think the committee would be pleased to do that, just given everybody's summer schedules.
It also allows us to deal with it in a more regular order when it comes to budgeting, et cetera. 'Cause
Yeah.
if we're going to need.
I didn't actually hear what you said, because
Oh, I was going to say, it would also allow us to deal with it in a more regular budget cycle too, because we could deal with any requests for
Right.
consultants and heading into the next fiscal year.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
All right, Architectural Review Board, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Drew Mitchell, Architectural Review Board Chairman. Our last meeting was a fun meeting. We started off with an application from Fawn Evanson on the paint color, which is not within our purview, but it was a good discussion to have. And fortunately, Chef was in the audience, and he imparted his creative counsel to her, which was very much appreciated. And so now we've got a really good-looking fence surrounding a generator down on Piedmont.
Do you hire yourself out?
We specialize in generator coverage.
There were 2 other applications which we wrapped up the one at 262 Main Street. It was the third and final application. They're doing an addition, a mudroom that we had some back and forth on, and so that was finally resolved, and so they were ultimately approved, which everybody's happy about. And then also Lisa Schneiderman, the Tulis building, and the Rappahannock News building, some minor repair work. So that was reviewed and approved. And then we had some informal discussions regarding some work that the Inn is proposing to do, and that will be moved into more formal discussions this coming Wednesday, which will be great. One of the items is that they've discovered and will be relocating, presumably, and preserving an historic log cabin in the town. So that's really exciting. And then a number of other items as well. So it'll be a pretty full meeting on Wednesday. But prior to the meeting, we've got a work session with a historic preservationist, historian, and an expert who's coming in to advise us on how to improve our guidelines and how to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And not just us, the board, but essentially for new applicants, and that council will be applied to our website as well, so that new residents or existing residents can go there and we'll take some of the confusion out of it. Right now, it's a little difficult to understand what our process is, and so I'm really excited about that. So that's a work session. It's open to the public, and it's this Wednesday from 4 to 6, and then we'll take an hour break and then go into our normally scheduled meeting. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. That's
Yeah,
very
thank you.
exciting.
Yeah.
And you have a full meeting on Wednesday at 7.
Right, including the town signs.
Thank you, Gail. There you go. All right. Old business. There is a discussion of the resolution to release funds quarterly. Let me emphasize that this discussion will lead to a okay, but the public hearing, can we approve the advertising for, okay, so we would approve the advertising at this meeting for
Right.
the public meeting in June.
Right.
give us some more detail. Would this be Mr. Krim or you,
It would
or?
be either Martin or I. The resolution is in here. And I think it's very good advice that we've received from our attorney, is that many towns today, instead of going through and wasting time approving checks to be paid, bills to be paid, and also doing things like that holds up the vendors, many of which, a lot of towns, and Washington especially, we use a lot of small businesses, and they depend on their weekly income to meet payroll and do other things. So it's recommended that the town council release quarterly funds. I can go shopping. No, seriously, for Barbara to be able to pay bills. A lot of things are not going to change. It's still going to take 2 or 3 signatures. There are going to be multitude of reviews of these checks before they get put in the mail. We've tried to streamline things as much as possible, and I think this is an excellent idea. So I would like to make a motion that we hold a public hearing at the June meeting on the resolution. Any questions, comments?
The resolution is in our packet,
Yeah,
is the
you
one,
can
the
read
one
it.
that says Town of Washington, Virginia resolution about resolution to appropriate funds in accordance with the adopted fiscal year 2022, et cetera, et cetera.
Any questions from anybody on the council?
Would you like to make a motion?
I just did.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions?
I will ask one question, and you're just, I think, Martin, you've mentioned this at previous meetings, but it's pretty consistent with what the other jurisdictions you advise.
That's correct. Very few people, I think, still have the monthly approval of the checks. It is, for the reasons Ms. Swift stated, a better business practice to do.
One more way the town is moving in the 21st century.
Yes.
Very exciting. Are there any other questions? If not, a roll call vote to approve advertising for a public hearing at the June meeting. Gene?
Yes?
Yes.
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 We will open it up now for a public hearing on the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. This is the very colorful monumental tome that was out on the table. Don't yawn yet, Bob. We still got a ways to go. I defer to Ms. Swift to lead us into this.
Really, just to see if anyone has any questions. I mean, most of you have been sitting in, Bob, I know you've sat in through all of the budget meetings, so it's really just to hear comments, questions
From the public.
from the public. If there are any questions on what we've presented. It's pretty cut and dried. There's not much in there. Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Last call. If none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. We will have as I recall, the way this works, we'll have another public hearing at the June meeting, or is it just the
No,
vote at that
just the
time?
vote.
Okay, so we will vote on this at the June meeting. All right, new business. This is another action that will require a public hearing, and so our role tonight is to discuss and take questions and approve advertising for a public hearing in June. This is to increase the non-meter water rate, or otherwise known as the bulk water sales rate, for the town of Washington.
This is for the water that we sell to the different companies that will come and buy water to fill pools or whatever that we deal with on a pretty regular basis, especially this time of year.
As I read the resolution, we have not had an ordinance to set fees and conditions for bulk water sales.
Yes, yes.
And there is, just after that last ordinance or resolution, proposed resolution, there is a proposed resolution, bulk water sale rate.
Right.
So at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve advertising for a public hearing in June.
Second?
I so move.
Thank you.
You so move, I
Gail
second.
seconds. All right, thank you very much. Any other discussion?
Yeah. I have two questions.
Shoot.
How were the numbers determined? I mean, was it looking at other communities and seeing that $20 per 1,000 gallons is kind of the norm?
We've been doing it very haphazardly.
Yeah.
It's $15 per 1,000 gallons currently. And so the resolution or ordinance, whatever it is.
Ordinance.
Is for 20 gallons. So just an increase of $5.
$20 per 1,000.
Right, so it's an increase of $5 per 1,000 gallons of what we are currently charged.
And how did you determine that 20 was the right amount?
Because we haven't increased it in,
I mean,
When?
why not 30? I just was
Right.
wondering how you came up with that number.
I think we had conservatively said that raising it 25% was probably a pretty stiff increase for one time out.
Okay.
I didn't do a market comparison, but
The other question I had was having it effective retroactively.
pardon?
The number 2 here is the ordinance is effective retroactively. Now, personally, if Comcast said, we're raising our rates and it's retroactive till January 1st, I'd be kind of outraged. Is this partly because there isn't much water use until now? Or what's the
I'm going to
rationale
defer to
for
our
that?
esteemed council for the reasoning behind that.
The reason why it's in there is because when we adopted the new rates for the metered water, that was, we made it retroactive to January 1st. So this is just to be consistent with that. There's no particular reason why it has to be consistent. If you want to strike paragraph 2 and have it be effective on approval by council, that's fine. It's not, I don't think we're not going to go back and rebill people for water they've already taken.
What is the benefit of then, if I can ask, having that language?
The only thing is that we didn't have a rate before this year, so it's, kind of trying to get it straightened out as of this calendar year. That's the only thing.
I agree with that, having it retroactive. I don't know if we've had any customers.
We have, so I mean, you could argue that might put us in an unusual position. I think so. That's fair. That's a good point.
I think we should put it effective
On passage.
on passage.
Sure.
The 11th, I think, is the
13th.
13th.
Okay.
All right.
We'll make that change.
So we have the motion approved with change.
We have a
Well,
motion.
it's just to
Advertise.
advertise it, so you can make that
Advertise.
change
Yeah.
at the
We
June
have a
meeting.
motion and the second we have not approved.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, motion to approve advertising with the condition that the amendment that I suggested, if that.
Yep.
Second.
Yes.
Is that clear, Gene?
Yeah,
A roll call vote?
yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The last piece of business that we have under new business is just a reminder that the deadline for town council election registration is when? June 21st. And I presume it's the same for mayor and treasurer?
Yes, we're all the same. So anybody who's looking at running again, better do their form.
All right?
And I believe our distinguished administrator has her stamp with her if you need to fill
Yes.
it out tonight. Because it does have to be notarized.
All right, which means that you should not sign the form until you're in front of her.
Exactly.
Will I open it up now, public forum? Yes, ma'am.
town. How much water do we sell? How many thousands of gallons of water do we sell in a year? Do you know?
I would estimate 120,000.
Commercially.
Commercial.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant. Yes, just commercially. Residentially, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just commercially beyond our own town use. A couple of years ago, a gentleman came and made a presentation about our aquifer and its capacity. And he was very concerned about it and very concerned about our maintaining the viability of it. I look at the droughts in California, moving on through New Mexico and through Texas and on east. It's not going to get here immediately. We're well watered now, but at some point, I'd like us to look at that, look at our sale of water, just to make sure we maintain
A good balance.
That's a good point. That's probably something that we should look at annually.
Or if I might, Mayor, you might want to adopt a drought policy that would simply look at this holistically.
I think we adopted one last year.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're covered.
Yeah. There's also in the long-term plan for infrastructure to drill a second well for the town, just to make sure we've got a backup in case of an extreme situation.
Third well.
Or a third well, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I will close the public forum, and I will make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Any questions? Roll call vote to adjourn, madam.
Yes.
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 Yes.